Okay.
Hello.
We're back again.
Hello. Can we get whoever it is that's got their mic on to turn it off? It's awfully noisy.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, which one do I want? No, still need, Gary will need to let me share screen.
All go.
Okay, awesome. That one. Okay, so you should now see this one. Let me just bring up my notes. Okay, meeting the Swaggy. It's a nice family photo taken in very difficult lighting conditions. You have good interaction with the two adults, but the child is looking off to the side. Always a problem with children in these sort of photos. When taking portraits, you should try and avoid cutting people off at the joints as you've got here. You've cut them off at the elbows and that sort of thing. So try and avoid that. Also, I've mentioned here that before you press the shutter button, look at the back, and here you've got a post coming out of the person's shoulder. This can obviously be removed in post-production, but it's something you need to consider prior to pressing the shutter button. It's a common occurrence with a lot of photographers. They don't look at that background. Okay, the next one is Mildura Dawn. A good long exposure, excuse me, that's better. A good long exposure image that you have, and you're controlling the exposure reasonably well, although there are a few little overexposed areas in the lights. It's very common for that to occur. The image is sharp throughout, although I would suggest that you are careful of not over sharpening the image, as there is some evidence of a halo around the edges. Also watch for dust spots in the sky. So if you have a close look at the sky, you'll see some dust spots in there, but this is a very good image, and I've given that a highly commended.
Well done, Gary.
Okay, Mildura, Mist Over the Bight. A nice atmospheric image of the mist of some really nice textured rock. You may consider moving slightly to the right to include the sweep around the corner. So at the moment, you've got this lovely sweep coming up through here, and then it takes you out of the film. If you'd sort of angle just slightly around, that would have been a lovely curve to bring you back into the image. So when you're composing these, just consider that when you're doing that. And again, I've got watch out for dust spots in the sky. Okay, next one, misty fence. Get out of that. There we go. Misty fence. A very ethereal feel to this image is enhanced by the soft focus that has been applied to this image. The warm palette works well in the image, and the track in the grass parallel to the fence combine to add a good leading line into the image. I would suggest you consider cropping the top and bottom of the image to eliminate the distractions of the sky and the dark grass. So what I'm talking about here is the sky up in this section here, and just the dark grass down through here. And I've given that image a highly commended. Yeah, highly commended.
That was Ken Anderson. Well done, Ken.
Okay, morning light. You've captured a beautiful warm palette in the morning sun. The mist in the distance adds to the feel of the isolation. You have composed the image very well, with the road leading the viewer's eye into the image, and the bright sky leads the eye back in through the image. The image is 1130 by 1080 pixels. A square format is more pleasing and restful. I've spoken about these, so I won't go into that. As you can see, it's almost square, but not quite. Just crop it to that square format, and I think I have a very stunning image here, and I've given that a highly commended. I commend it.
Well done, Dave Cook.
New Haven pre-dawn, a beautiful dawn image with just enough atmospheric condition to give those interesting beams of light that's up through this area here. The colour palette in the sky is amazing, graduating from the warm yellows through to the cool blues. I feel the central area of the sun is slightly overexposed, and the brightness can be decreased by reducing the white levels or your highlight levels in your post-production. This can also be avoided by taking the shot slightly earlier, say at around 7:15 instead of 7:47. Also consider using a graduated neutral density filter, as this will allow you to get more exposure on the foreground, but still maintaining that bright and beautiful color in the sky. No surf. I remember this one. No surf. I love the potential story of this image of the surface ready, but there is not any surf. In photography, we talk about the weight of an object in an image. Here, the eye goes to the two people standing on the path. It then goes to the pine tree because that's a very large area. But I would suggest that the story is down here in line with these people here as part of the story, looking out to the sea. So you need to consider when taking these what the actual story is that you're looking at, because with the placement of these two people here, this pine tree, those two objects dominate this image, whereas I think you want this to be the dominant. So just when you consider taking these, you look at that, what you're actually trying to talk about in that story. I hope that makes sense. The knobbies is always worth taking an image of. Compositionally, the image ticks many boxes. You have a straight horizon, which is in the upper part of the image, giving prominence to the foreground. The camera was on auto mode and has selected f/5.6 at 500ths of a second and an ISO of 200. This has caused the problem in that most of the image is out of focus because of the 5.6. Because it gives you a very shallow depth of field. You really needed an f-stop of at least somewhere between 7.1 and 11 to give you the depth of field to get both the foreground and the knobbies in focus. So if you can, try and get your camera off auto and start controlling that depth of field yourself, because on auto, the camera doesn't know what you want to do, and it will pick some figures itself to give you a good exposure. And the exposure in this is very, very good. It's just that depth of field. As I said, you've got some of the foreground here in focus, but the knobbies here is actually out of focus. So just consider moving away from the autofocus. Next one. Novice, Misty Mountain. There's some really nice texture in the sky and around the mountains with the mist. The image has been well exposed, but it appears flat. I suggest that you increase the contrast and saturation slightly to make the image pop. I would also suggest that you crop out the tree on the right. I feel that the image has not had the lens correction done, as the trees on the right are all leaning into the image. You can see these trees here, how they're all leaning into the image. So when you download your image, one of the first things I do when I'm photographing is I set my white balance and I set I do a lens correction. And I think that lens correction would straighten those trees. I hope that makes sense. Storm warning. Novice, storm warning. It certainly has a great dramatic sky. You want to consider putting this into the Met Bureau. They run a competition every year for atmospheric and storm images. So consider putting this one in. You've used the foreground to provide or add interest to the image and a good leading line. The contrasting shades of the white and grey work well in the image. I suspect that when you took this, you shot and focused on the distant shore or the clouds. As a result, the pier is slightly out of focus. When shooting this kind of scene, because the distance is always going to be slightly out of focus, make sure you focus on the foreground. But this is a very good image, and I've given this a commended.
Well done, Helen Stewart.
Novice, Misty Mountain Lane. You have used the leading line of the road to really good effect. The mist on the mountain is dramatic and worth a photograph. I suggest that a portrait format would have created a stronger image by providing a vertical tension, as the left-hand side of the image does not add a great deal to the image. Now, what I'm talking about here is you've got this lovely leading line. You've got these trees here leading right to the main subject here. If you crop down here, basically giving yourself a portrait format, and your portrait adds a vertical tension to an image. So you might consider that instead of the 4/3 format. And I've given this a commended as well.
Well done, Helen Stewart.
Okay, passion fruit flower. In this close-up, you've chosen a good aperture to provide a good depth of field from a macro lens, so that the main subject is sharp and well separated from the background. The complementary colour of the blue and yellow work to draw the viewer's eye or the viewer's attention to the red stamen. I like the off-center composition that you've put in here, and I think this is a very good image, and I've given this a commended as well.
Well done, Will.
Okay, peer view. This image has a lot of potential. You have a lovely warm colours in the sky, some nice texture in the pylons of this well-exposed image. In this image, you have used the pylons to frame the sunrise, and this is certainly well done. I commend you for that one. The pylons also form a strong gestalt pattern. However, the line of the pylons form a leading line taking the viewer's eye out of the image. I suggest you consider cropping the right-hand side to increase the shadow luminosity. So in other words, what I'm talking about here is you've got this bit of brightness here. I'd crop that out. So just crop this down here. That will get rid of that brightness, bringing you right back into the sun. I hope that makes sense. And I've given this image a commended.
Well done, Ken.
Tina, we saw a few of these during the nature section of the international competition, and honestly, this one I should have seen that in the international competition. It's a very good macro. The eyes are pin sharp, which is what you wanted. The ascending diagonal placement adds strength to the image by leading the viewer through the image. You've achieved a very good separation from the background. Some judges may be critical of the depth of field with the far wing being out of focus, but a lot of judges, including myself, don't find that offensive. To increase the depth of field, you would need an aperture of around about f13 instead of the f9 that you've used. And that would increase your depth of field. But this macro is every bit as good as the ones I saw in the international competition. And I've given this a highly commended.
Well done, Will.
Hidden Creeks. Hidden Creeks, this is a beautiful image. A very nice scene with a strong diagonal composition leading the viewer through the image. This must have been a very still day. as a 1/20th of a second shutter speed has provided little movement in the water, but it's also had a fairly sharp, giving you a fairly sharp image on the ferns. The image is well balanced and exposed. The square format allows for the central placement of the main subject, and the slight vignette help to retain the viewer's eye. You might consider investigating the Orton effect, because I think that would really work well in this image. And I've given this a highly commended.
Well done, Susan McLaughlin.
Okay, Rusty Dawn, a good long exposure, 186 seconds. So you've done well with this one. That has warm colours in both the foreground and the sky. I like the low shooting aspect, giving a sense of being part of the environment. I feel that this image has two major focal points, the shed and the sunrise, and both are on opposite sides of the image, so you're causing tension from the viewer. Now, the bit on the left, the water, gives you a very calming effect. I suggest that you consider cropping the shed out, as I believe that this would provide a very good C curve into the dawn. But alternately, you could crop the left-hand sky out and you've got a wonderful image going to the shed. So this image could be divided essentially into two images. So I'd consider doing that, because as it is, I said, you've got the tension between the two subjects that is confusing the viewer, but it is a very good image with a lot of potential. Next one, sax player. I love the concept of this image. The colour palette used makes the main subject stand out from the background and provide background interest. I would suggest that you consider cropping to a square format, as this will place the eye on a PowerPoint within the image. Now, the PowerPoint is where you've got your rule of thirds and they intersect. Okay. Yes, so the sax player I gave a highly commended.
Well done, Rob McKay.
I love this image, Sleeping Giant. It's a great, well-seen image, and I'd love to know where that rock is. You have done well to isolate the main subject by eliminating all other distractions. So it's a very minimalist image, and I commend you for that one. The perspective from your shooting position adds size and strength to your subject. You might consider bringing out more of the texture and colour in the rock, and also adding a vignette to retain the viewer's eye. Very good image, and I've given this a commended.
And that one was mine.
Well done. Okay, Sleeping Giant, Succulent. I love the complementary colours of the organic main subject, combined to isolate the succulent from the texture of the background. This is a simple, well-exposed image that I think would benefit from some post-processing to increase its impact. Being a minimalist image, you need to remove all distractions, such as the pine needles. So we're talking about these pine needles through here, here, and down through here. You might consider doing it at the time of photographing or in post-production, but with minimalist images, almost can make it simple. Now, the next one, your tawny frogmouth. They're always great subjects. Your composition using the diagonal branch from the lower corner of the image works well to lead the eye into the image. So compositionally, your image works well. However, the overexposed sky, I think, has caused some funny issues with the color across the image. And this can be corrected by converting it to black and white, and then increasing the contrast, sharpening, etc. You can sharpen the image, which is soft, because the shutter speed was only 1/50th of a second. For stationary birds, you need around 1,000th of a second to consistently achieve a sharp focus. So you can see here, you've got a blue haze on this branch up here and down through here, and your other tawny frogmouth also has a bluish tinge in the background here. So with these overexposed skies, And when you're photographing birds against a very bright sky, it is a problem to try and get a well-exposed image and not overexpose the background. So you might consider this a monochrome. I think would get rid of those problems for you. Three pelicans, certainly one way to minimize the extraneous objects from the image. You either love it or hate it. So some judges will hate this type of thing. Some judges will love it. So knowing the trend in photographic circles, this may not do well in high-level competitions. Having said that, the diagonal bar through the image is good and the pelicans are sharp and well exposed. It was good timing having the three center pelican having the center pelican's wings up. And I like the story of the light between the pelicans. I want to sit there basically. So regardless of the barbed wire on the poles. So I think that's very good, that story of I want to sit there and the human saying, no, you won't. So I've said this is well done on a courageous effort. As I said, a lot of judges will not like that very sharp vignette around it. The next one, trio. This is an interesting still life interpretation of the lilies. The portrait format works well with the tall flowers, enhancing their elongation. The high key treatment against the dramatic area stands out nicely against the white background. This type of image demands simplicity in the background. In this image, there are a couple of areas with the black smudges that need to be removed. And if you look carefully, you'll see them sort of around here and over here. And then up here. So you just need to remove those. And you'll have a very, very good image. Next one, undercover. A pleasant river scene that you've captured in this long exposure image. The image is generally sharp from the foreground to the background and color treatment has been well handled. The one major problem is the fern leaf that has moved. This needs to be cloned out, which will take some work. I recommend that when you're taking this type of image, that you take not just a number of long shutter speeds, but you also take one that's well exposed at a high shutter speed so that you can then easily merge the images, and that gets rid of those nasty leaves that have moved during your exposure. Where's the next one? Is vastness. Certainly the sentiment here is of a vast landscape, and you've done well to ensure that the horizon in both the mirror and the larger landscape match. And this composition tells of an interesting story of the vastness of our country. It would have been nice if one of these segments of the image was sharp, as that would have given real impact to this image. So if you'd made this part here sharp or this one sharp, that would have really added that impact to this one. Next one, what a tangled web we weave. It's a nicely framed monochrome image. You have composed the image well, placing the center of the web on the golden ratio power point. The f-stop chosen gives a good depth of field to isolate the web from the background. I like the juxtaposition of the humans mimicking the nature. So the wire mimicking the nature of the web. Your monochrome treatment, I think, adds a simplicity to this image. And as I said, I really like this one and I've given it a highly commended.
Well done, Rhonda.
White poppy is a very simple image with a plain background. The white and black complement each other and the yellow stamen draws the viewer's attention. The texture of the petals could work to provide added interest to the soft focus, which detracts from this texture. An out of focus composition can work very well, but it must look like it was deliberately made out of focus. One of the suggestions that I've made here for this one is that you have a look at a person by the name of Justin Quinnell. He's a pinhole photographer, and he does a lot of this sort of image, and it might benefit you to have a look at his work and try and replicate that pinhole type camera. There is a growing trend in photographic circles of these to make them unusual and stand out, and I think keep trying with this sort of format, and I think that can develop into something really special. Okay, the next one, Wimmera Windmills. The architectural image exhibits good dynamic range and sharpness. The monochrome format is suited to the sharp lines of the main subjects. You might consider lifting the color mix when converting to monochrome to give the foreground a bit more punch. When removing objects, be careful of the cloning process. Now, what I'm talking about that is this spot up here and also down here. Looks like there's been some cloning done in those two spots. But what I'm talking about with the lifting the color mix, when you're converting to monochrome, you could have lifted the green and just enhanced the green in the conversion, and that would have made that grass pop a little more. But when we're windmills, I've given a highly commended.
Well done, Jenny Skews.
Oh, this looks like the last one. Wyndham Sunset, a very nice silhouette with some impressive colours in the sky. I like the layering effect of the clouds. Our shooting perspective adds stature to the baobab trees, and the position of the foreground anchors your image. You might consider editing using the dehaze and texture sliders to remove some of the noise in the image, but beyond that, it is a very, very good image, and I like the silhouette aspect, and I've given this a highly commended.
And well done, Rob McKay. Thank you very much, Gary. We really appreciate all your feedback.
My pleasure. It has been a little rushed, but if anyone wants to either ring me up or give me an email for further explanation, please feel free to do so.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
My
it would
pleasure.
be lovely to have you face to face so we could ask a lot more questions.
Maybe next time.
Yes, please come down.
Okay, then.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
Right, bye.
Bye. Okay, we'll just touch on a few other things in the meeting, and then what we might do is just take the Bubbles Challenge on our way out. So we've got the overnight excursion coming up, which we've still got a couple of places that are available in October. So if you're interested in doing that, Brenda is taking those numbers. The aged care exhibition that Frank is organising, there's been 8 people willing to get involved and display some of theirs, which is fabulous. And we've still got some more room there if anyone wants to put some in for that. And the wildflower, the World Vision Flower Show is coming up shortly. So the next month's evaluations, which are due into Gary yesterday, are black and white, and Paul Lucas will be actually evaluating them. And our challenge is the juxtaposition, which Rhonda showed us a wonderful example through those photos with the spider web. And the photo submissions for the next month will be open, and they need to be to Gary by the 4th of July. So is there any questions before we hand over to Gary Parnell to show us the Bubbles Challenge? I can't see everybody. I've got you on my phone, and I apologise if there's noise in my background because I'm looking after the granddaughters today as part of the. Oh, can't you? Okay, that's probably a good thing.
Before we go to the slideshow, slideshow actually
Yep.
runs for 10 minutes, so you might have to look at that online.
Oh, okay.
We have had a few issues with people being able to log in. So we have a few bugs still in our running of Zoom, or my running of Zoom.
Well, that's a bit of a pity.
Once I hand over to Gary, I lost control of letting people in.
Oh, right.
I
Okay.
think Jenny Skews was running late and didn't get in, and I think Susan didn't get into the second part. And I thought I had Zoom set to automatically let people in, so that obviously doesn't work.
Yep.
And I'm not sure we're going to get the full recording either, because I couldn't go to session 2 until the other recording finished, so I had to cancel it.
Oh, right. Okay. That'll be interesting to see what happens.
We have a few issues.
A few opportunities to improve.
So we may have a couple of grumpy members.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we all get to meet face to face next meeting.
Yeah.
It would be good.
We only have 6 minutes left, so I can share my screen and put the slideshow on, and we can all fade into the distance.
Okay, I think that's what we can do, unless there's any other questions from anyone. No. Okay, Gary, take it away.
You all see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, Gary.